Hey YouTube, Will of DC here, and I'm doing a whole brand new video series talking to people that are YouTubers that you probably don't know that are very important at working in our space. The first person I'm going to talk to this time is Nick Hanauer. Hello Nick, how are you doing?
Will, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. For those of you who don't know, Nick is the idea, the brains, the man behind King of the Web, yes?
One of them.
One of them, one of the many.
Yeah.
So the big things that Nick, you're doing right now is doing a lot of activism around kind of economy and political activism and all these things, and you've written a really terrific book called The Gardens of Democracy, A New American Story of Citizenship, the Economy, and the Role of Government.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you wrote the book and what you hope to accomplish with it?
Well, I mean, it doesn't take a keen observer of politics to see that things are really screwed up.
You can go to YouTube any day and see somebody ranting about politics.
A big part of the problem is that our politics is sort of captive to this really narrow and incredibly stupid left-right tug of war. This sort of tug of war between the
very black-white, locked into a box ideology.
Right, and the problem is that unless you have some foundationally new ideas about how to think about politics, you will be stuck in that useless left-right thing forever. And the good news is that there is a very important new way to understand human social systems available to us that wasn't available 30 years ago, and that is that we now know with scientific precision.
Yes.
That human social systems are ecosystemic. They are complex and adaptive, not linear and mechanistic, which is what the entire sort of traditional way of understanding the world is predicated on.
Right. I feel like I was raised, and I'm 25. I feel like I've grown up with a lesson of everything is machine-oriented. Crap. What was the word I was going to use? Assembly line. There we go.
Yeah.
I feel like everything was very machine-oriented, assembly line. And reading your book, it was really interesting to see just how more complex the world is. It's not assembly line. There's so many different factors leading into everything.
Right, and all the metaphors that we use to understand the world are mechanistic, right? So if you look at an illustration on a magazine cover of the economy, they will show you cogs and wheels and smokestacks, right? That's how people perceive the world. And the problem with that is it's dead wrong. It's completely wrong. Our economy isn't like an ecosystem, it actually is an ecosystem. And once you understand that, everything about how you understand what to do changes dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost as if, I want to actually go into a different question, or ask that question a different way.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, how once you understand that, everything changes, but I feel like 90% of Americans aren't there yet, where we've raised our culture and our society to be very top heavy, where the top 1% are the best. They've lived the American dream, and so we need to sacrifice everything for them, and they need to have all the tax breaks because they're the ones that are the only reason America will survive is if they're able to do whatever they want.
Right.
But if that's not true, and it doesn't seem to be true, have we inceptioned ourselves here? Have we trained ourselves to live in a certain mindset that isn't true?
Yes, absolutely. So if it was true that the economy was this mechanistic, linear, closed system, then it could also be true that if you poured money into rich people like an ingredient, that jobs would kind of squirt out of them like donuts. Because the truth is, people like you are the job creators. Consumers are job creators. And when they buy things, businesses hire and owners profit.
And we've never heard that story. I feel because if you're saying that the rich are the ones that can create jobs, the flip side of that is that no one else can create jobs.
Right.
And so I don't feel like we've ever been told that I can create a job or that the middle class can create a job.
And it's simply dead wrong. It's dead wrong. So here's the thing. So in an ecosystem, what's absolutely true is more grass equals more zebras, and more zebras will produce more lions.
Yes.
But the opposite is not true. More lions do not create more zebras and more grass.
It kills off all the zebras.
Yes. And so what we have done, literally, is constructed an economy and a political system to make apex predators, lions, like me, have a lot easier life on the idea that somehow that will magically create more zebras and more grass. You have to turn it upside down, and you have to rebuild our economic system around the middle class, because when the middle class thrives, everything gets better. Trickle-down economics is a death spiral. Middle-out economics is a virtuous cycle of increasing prosperity for everybody. Because if you in the middle class do better, I will do better too. Right? That's true.
The rising boat, or the
Yes.
rising tide lifts all
It's
boats.
it's a virtuous cycle of increasing prosperity. The better you do, the better I do. But the opposite is not true. It is not true that if I get richer, you will be better off.
But here's the thing too, is that these ideas aren't new. Like, we've lived through trickle-down economics for 30 years or whatever, and you've been speaking about, monetary policy and economics, and peers that
Yes.
share your same ideas have been for a few years at least as well. But are we living in the matrix, essentially? Because
Yes.
it's not like everyone is on board with your idea. I mean,
No.
the middle class isn't on board with your idea. We've
Right.
trained them to be, struggling manufacturers, struggling, the Ohio middle class worker would, if you asked him, what's the most important, tax breaks to give, I feel like he would say, give them all to the wealthy,
Right.
when he's the one that's struggling to make his house payment, his
Exactly.
car payment. How do we feed them the blue pill when they're the ones defending the broken system?
I think that you just have to fight this incredibly stupid idea. I mean, Mitt Romney is literally on TV saying, my 13.5% tax rate on $25 million of unearned income is too high, and it should go down, and if it does, it will be good for you. This is the craziest idea in the world. I mean, of course, the most powerful force in human affairs is the need to self-justify, right? And trickle-down economics is this marvelously self-justifying.
They've sold it to us so well,
Right.
so well.
Right, and it makes people feel good to believe it. It makes people feel good to be able to say, the less of a contribution I make to the country in taxes, the better off you and the country will be. And people have bought it. It's just the most.
It's not just that they bought it; they fervently defend it. I
Yes.
mean, half the country is probably going to vote for that way of thinking.
Absolutely, and that is because all of the metaphors they use to understand the world, all of the underlying assumptions that they use to understand the world, are rooted in these 19th century ways of thinking. And once you start thinking ecosystemically, you realize that it's a feedback loop, right? That's what ecosystems are. It's
Right.
feedback loops between buyers and sellers, between customers and businesses. And the thing is that, look, I've started dozens of companies, but if there weren't people around to buy the things that we sold, all of the jobs and all of the companies would evaporate like
Go
that.
belly up.
Absolutely. Capitalists like me hire people in the last resort. Right? That's the last thing we want to do.
Something I read that you said in one of your interviews is that the successful business sells more product with less jobs.
Right.
And I think that was so interesting, because I feel like if you would ask any politician, they'd say a successful business, or someone defending this way of thought, so successful business is the ones that sell to Americans and hire American workers. But again,
No.
we're in this matrix exception where
No.
you say that's not true.
It's simply not true. The way we judge business success is profit. And profit is largely defined by how few people do you have versus the unit of sales versus the other guy, right? And the fewer jobs you create relative to your sales, the more successful your business is. In this sense, for somebody like me to call themselves a job creator isn't just inaccurate. It's disingenuous.
If I had, a magic wand to whirl around, and you had the ability to reshape how the pieces of the economy fit together, how to arrange resources and things differently, what are some basic things that you would do first?
Well, I mean, foundationally, you have to fix the tax code. You have to shift the burden of taxes back from the middle class to the rich, where it belongs. So tax rates on wealthy Americans need to go up dramatically by at least 15 points from from 20% to 35 or 40. Tax rates on middle class people should probably go down, and we have to start massively investing in the things that make middle class families successful. We have to get our healthcare costs under control so people can
Seriously.
Yeah. So people can afford to come into stores and buy things again. We have to make college affordable so every kid who goes to college doesn't end up with a $50,000 or $100,000 debt to a bunch of banks.
How do I get involved? How do I help change things?
This is a fantastic start. You know, we have to ignite people's anger, and we also have to ignite their common sense. It makes no sense to believe that the economy should revolve around a tiny number of rich white guys, right? It doesn't. The economy revolves around the great mass of middle-class people in our country. And the better they do, the better the country will do.
Yeah.
And the opposite is not true. It is not true that the better the Koch brothers do, the better that we will do.
What do you hope to accomplish with King of the Web in 5 years?
So here's the way to think about it. We have this offline culture, which is really fantastic and rich. We have, for instance, the Olympics, which are offline. We want King of the Web to be the online Olympics. We want, like, there's a Super Bowl every year, right? And that includes, you know, a few people get to participate in that, right? But we could have, we want King to be the online Super Bowl. And we want everyone in the world to participate, right? Because there's this equally rich online culture. And why should that be less awesome than the Super Bowl?
Absolutely.
Right? So that I can't give you a specific, but emotionally that's where we want it to go.
Do you think that there'll be a carryover if, you know, because obviously people are adopting King of the Web at a really rapid pace. It's growing really fast every month. Do you think there's going to be a spillover effect into offline culture and society where our kids, because everyone always talks about no one under 35 votes. Do you think that you are starting a trend that will empower people to actually get involved in offline democracy if they're so invested and every day living in an online democracy?
Well, I hope so. I mean, and you know, part of the essence of King is politics. Like it is kind of like it's politics, right?
In the most base sense of the word, not necessarily
not a
Republican,
bad way.
Democrat, or something like that, but the base sense of what the definition
is. And you know, I hope that what we're creating excites people in ways that they'll participate in all of the social networks that they inhabit. Offline and online, right? And participate in our democracy. So.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for joining us.
Thank you for everything you do. It's fantastic.
Everyone, we're going to put links to all of his websites and everywhere you can see and read about him in the description below. And just thank you once again for having us.
It is astounding how significantly one idea can shape a society and its policies. Consider this one. If taxes on the rich go up, job creation will go down.